Hey there, YouTube, here again on a Thursday night. Here, bringing you some news stories. And my name is Angel. I'm with One Mediator Media. And today we're going to talk about the things that happened this week from the minute to the seconds to, it's 2020. Everything's going crazy here. Let's not forget to hit the like button, hit the bell, and subscribe. If you have comments, things to say, put them right down there. And so without waiting any further, let's go ahead and go. Go.
There is a mail mystery in Glen. Bags of letters, boxes, and other items at two different places. CBS 2's Candace Crone shows us one of those incidents was caught on camera.
Cameras at 7Q Spa were rolling early yesterday morning as a budget box truck backed into the parking lot. Moments later, you see bag after bag being tossed out of the back and onto the ground.
Made United States.
A spa worker who found the bags took this video and discovered they were filled with hundreds of unopened envelopes and packages from the United States Postal Service.
Okay, so that's a really interesting question, right? So what is going on here? That's the question. What's happening here? We have mail being dropped off for no reason. It's a budget truck. It has nothing to do with the post office. This guy's dumping this mail. They're saying it's a contractor. So this guy's in a truck and he's dumping all this mail. And according to CNN, it says bags of mail were dumped in a parking lot in Glendale, California last week, according to surveillance footage obtained by CNN. The September 3 video shows a budget rental vehicle backing into the lot of 7Q Spa, so on and so forth. So he backed up there, dumped a bunch of mail. Now, I've looked this up. It does happen. There's a few reports from months back, years back, where they catch us every now and then. It's interesting it's happening right now. It's interesting that it's happening when we're talking about these different options in terms of mail-in ballots. We're talking about doing a 100% mail-in ballot, or we're talking about going in person, where we're talking about absentee ballots, all these different situations. And so the question here is mail-in voting safe? Going conspiratorial, we can say, well, why is this happening right now? Why are we seeing this right now? If we look at it in terms of, well, is this a common practice? And our system is currently hurting for whatever reason. Could be the cuts, could be the joy, could be all these things. Point is, if this happens and it's happening beforehand, I don't want to trust that. I mean, personally, I think I'd rather just go in, put on my mask on, take my sanitizer, and separate myself from somebody 10 feet away, sign a quick thing, and ready to go. That's me. If you want to mail it, that's up to you. I think I'd rather go in just because I want my vote to count. So it says it was completely unusual. 7Q owner Lilia Saraboan, or Serobian, told CNN affiliate KCBS she said upon closer inspection of the bags, she noticed that they were filled with hundreds of unopened envelopes and packages from the U.S. Postal Service. It's suspicious. You start thinking, okay, something's going on because no one has access to all those boxes and packages. How did this guy get them? Kind of fishy. Budget truck, dumps a bunch of mail. We have no idea how he got them. We have no idea who he was. I don't know. We'll see what comes up. This happened, I believe it was yesterday. So our next story here, we're going to talk about trick-or-treating. I'm not a fan of it. I don't do it myself. Obviously, I'm a little old. It talks about that LA County walks back on trick-or-treating ban, but says going door-to-door on Halloween is not recommended. I'm surprised they're actually doing it. They're being so careful about everything else. A day after banning the Halloween tradition this year due to COVID-19 pandemic, LA County public health officials reversed course on Wednesday, saying instead of the activity is not recommended. Again, personally, I don't like it anyway, but just because I don't like dark things. I say let's celebrate life, not death. But that being said, I wouldn't send my kids out there anyway, even if I did participate in this, which I don't. So it's something interesting out there. Just keep an eye out for that. Why send kids out to be exposed to this? I mean, one thing is, yes, we're wearing masks. Well, obviously for that, right? But separate from that, we are going to keep kids safe by not passing around things that have been touched, spit on, talked on, whatever it is. I just wouldn't really do it. So it says not recommended. I think it should just be no. I mean, we're banning everything else. Next story here we're going to talk about is dirty air from wildfires. Now, everybody's seen these pictures. And so the Bay Area is completely being hit right now with this. And it's been for the past couple days or few days. Apparently there's 29 wildfires all across California, but they're really being hit hard in this area. That being said, it's really ugly. I mean, they're seeing daytime. This is like midday here. That's what I've been seeing the report saying. That's what it looks like. It's completely covered. You can't even see the sun. And so it says Bay Area residents woke to another day of perpetual twilight. The sun obscured by thick smoke from a historic conflagration of fires throughout California. The interesting thing about this is that I'm going to jump over to the next one. It says Trump speaks with California governor and amid raging wildfires. And so there's a lot of back and forth about it, right? Sometimes we hear that Governor Newsom and Trump are bumping heads. Sometimes we hear that they're doing well. In this case, they do kind of touch on this a little bit, but overall, Newsom comes out, or Jed Deere actually says here, today President real Donald Trump spoke with California Governor Newsom to express his condolences for the loss and life and reiterate the administration's full support to help those on the front lines of the fires. The governor thanked the president for the ongoing assistance and support. I think that's where they left off on. So, although Trump is in disagreement with the way things are done out here, I am too, to be honest. He's still supporting the state, and we do need it because a lot of people are hurting. A lot of things have been destroyed, and so that's good. Praise the Lord for that. Let's move on here. So we're going to jump on to the next one. Okay, so Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler. Now, this isn't quite local for us here in California, but it is something that's affecting the whole nation in terms of what is going on with protests, riots, and all these things that are happening. And so Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler viewed negatively by 2/3 of the city's voters, says the report. And so it says only 26% of voters viewed the mayor favorably, poll results said. And so when we look at this is more than 100 nights of riots. So there have been more than 100 nights of riots in Portland. That being said, there's been destruction, there's been burning of police stations, there's been burning of the federal building, there's been just attacks all over the place, and a lot of violence out there. It finally got to the point where Ted Wheeler's home or condo was attacked. They were throwing large fireworks up there. They were throwing many things. They were trying to start a fire out there. And finally, Ted Wheeler came out and said, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to move. Well, Ted, move, but take everybody else with you. Why don't you move everybody in Portland with you since you're not doing much about it? And we're going to get into that right now. So if I jump to this next piece here, which is directly associated with this. So Portland, and this is according to NPR, Portland, Oregon mayor bans police use of tear gas at protests. Okay, so let me get this right. So people are fed up with this. People are protesting. Ted is not doing much about it. Ted gets attacked at his home. Doesn't say he was attacked directly, but at his home. Ted then decides to ban tear gas, and here it is in his own words.
It's time for everyone to reduce the violence in our community. We all want change. We all have the opportunity and the obligation to create change. We all want to focus on the fundamental issue at hand, justice for Black people and all people of color. That's why, as police commissioner, effective immediately and until further notice, I'm directing the Portland Police Bureau to end the use of CS gas for crowd control. I commend the preliminary work that the Oregon State Legislature has done to convene experts to evaluate the use of gas and what safer alternatives may exist that prevent the need for greater force.
As you move out to a better place, a safer place, and you leave the rest of Portland behind. No, Ted. Sorry, that's not how it works. A good leader sticks with their people. A good leader will make decisions that support and keep people safe. That's not what you're doing. You're saying you guys are not allowed to protect. And yes, he is saying using safer methods, but when the crowd is going crazy, it needs to be stopped. You're not giving your police the tools. And there's been many police. So federal troops have come in at one point. Local police have come in at one point. State police were asked to come in. There are, and I believe U.S. Marshals as well. And so they're not given the tools. If they don't have the tools needed to quickly disperse something, you end up with situations like your home where you're being attacked. Don't move out if you are contributing by not supporting your public. Stop. Seriously. Okay, just wanted to share that with you guys. If I go on here, Willamette Week, which is a local reporting newspaper agency that did a survey, and so it says most Oregonians, I've never seen that one, Oregonians think Portland protests are violent and counterproductive. What's more surprising is that that support isn't much greater in the Portland metro area, where 61% of voters disapprove. 61% of your people disapprove of what you're doing. Ted, you need to change it. Survey released today shows the majority of Oregon people, Oregonians, believe Portland protests are mostly violent and that police are not using too much force to subdue them. The survey released by Portland-based polling firm DHM Research shows that just 29% of likely Oregon voters think police are responding with too much force. Okay, so only a third of the population thinks that the police is responding with too much force. Because of that one third, 29%, Ted is going to remove the ability of the police to protect everybody else. So almost 70% of your population is going to be not in a good position, while the 30% is happy that they continue. Just no. I mean, listen, Ted, listen to your public. That's the most important thing. They elected you. Listen to them. They want to be safe. You're not keeping them safe. You're keeping yourself safe, but not them. And these 29%, I think they should go out to the street and see how they like it too. I think it's just not right. I think voters should have a say. That 66% should have a major say. And Ted, you need to listen to them starting now. On to our next one. Here it says in Reuters, it says United States formally announced troop reduction in Iraq. Now, every president, as far back as I can remember, has always made it a point to try to say, let's bring home our troops, let's bring home our troops, let's bring home our troops. You don't see it happen too often. Closer to elections, you tend to see some, but for the most part, you don't see it happen too often. I believe Obama did have a few, but it came much later, if I remember correctly. Trump's not doing it, and but that was one of his promises too, right? So I guess it's good. It says the United States military on Wednesday announced that it would reduce its presence in Iraq from 5,200 to 3,000 troops this month, formalizing a long-expected move. Last month, Reuters reported that the United States was expected to reduce its troops presence in Iraq by about a third. That's a lot. The United States has around 5,200 troops. Okay, so we just went over that. So this is great news. I think it's great. The situation out in Iraq, it happened. I didn't agree with it at the time. I don't think I still agree with it. I can see from one side why we would go in such a direction. Again, not saying I quite agree with it. I think we should be as peaceful as possible. And I do reiterate as possible. So 5,200 down to 3,000. That's not bad. So interesting fact here is that according to the Epoch Times, it says Biden agrees with Trump's decision to pull troops from Iraq. We have an agreement. We actually have an agreement between Trump and Biden. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I think that's great. It's just awesome. So anyway, South African volunteers on AstraZeneca vaccine trial say not alarmed by pause. So I started reading this, and it looks like so they do have some trials, and you can see them here, and it's in South Africa, and people are actually volunteering for it. So it says some 2,000 volunteers in South Africa are taking part in the trial, which was paused globally on Tuesday after an unexplained illness in a participant. An independent committee will review the safety data. Kinsani Nkuna, at 27 years of age, started the trial in July. She said she had not yet been personally told about the suspension, but added the unexplained illness was not worrying her since she had no symptoms. And so some of them are fine. Again, we went over this the other day that there was a reaction. Some people aren't worried about it. Some of them are still going for it as far as being, okay, it says no guinea pigs. I was about to say that, being volunteers. But, you know, they feel strongly that they're doing a good thing. So, okay, more power to them. They want to be the first ones to get it, and they want to demonstrate, you know, using their own body, that it's perfectly fine. So I can respect that. So one of our big stories today, Bob Woodward criticized for not releasing Trump's COVID-19 comments sooner. So I'm sure we've all heard about this, perhaps not the details, but Bob Woodward is a writer. He's been a writer for many years. He actually, from what I learned, he was one of the writers that did had an interview with Richard Nixon as well during the whole Watergate scandal. And so that being said, he was instrumental in that piece as well. I saw an interview with Trump today, and he said he knew he was a respected journalist and respected writer. That's why he felt comfortable doing this interview with him. So what happened was that Bob Woodward did an interview with Trump, and that interview was rather candid, and Trump said things that he probably shouldn't have said. And we'll go over some of those things. So in this particular article, it talks about, and we'll go back into that. So essentially, Woodward started asking him about how he felt about white privilege. And Trump essentially said, oh, so you drank the Kool-Aid, essentially saying, well, you believe in that stuff. I don't really believe in it. Some people do, some people don't. Initially, there were a lot of issues. We had slavery, we had all these things. Initially, we went through a huge process. People were segregated, they were discriminated against. Many things did happen during the 1950s, I believe, and 60s. They were still, even beyond that, they were still segregating people through housing. And so many times there's many reports that they would not give loans to certain families because they were people of color, because of whatever reason. And so that carried on for a while. So there is an essence of discrimination throughout our history, but at the same time, I do also believe that this current generation really is not responsible for that. We can only answer for ourselves. If I'm a racist, then I need to answer for that. I'm responsible for that. If I don't practice that, I don't feel that responsibility myself. Now, do I feel a responsibility to make the world better? Of course. That's all of our jobs. Where we see something incorrect, we should speak up about it. When we see something where we can help somebody out, let's do it. Where we can love our neighbor, that's our job. That's our whole goal. That's our second commandment from Jesus, right? Love our neighbors as ourselves. And so that's our responsibility. And some people are taking that upon themselves and saying, well, because I'm privileged, I have to help you. But what about all the people who weren't? When you go to Walmart, you go to, somebody who works on a boat out deep sea fishing, somebody who works on an oil rig out in the ocean somewhere, somebody who's picking up garbage somewhere, and they happen to be white, for example. Are they privileged? I've known plenty of people in my life who were white, and I wouldn't quite consider them privileged, as much as I wouldn't consider myself either. I grew up in a situation where I didn't have everything, so um, some people, yeah, they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Yeah, they're born with everything, but I honestly believe that, especially in this life, if we're given a deck of cards, right, and we pass those cards out, and it really is a poker game. You're given given a hand, and regardless of what you say, do, or want, that hand is given to you, and it's your job to do something with it. Now you can make good choices, and you can, you know, turn some cards in, swap them out, do different things, and end up with a good hand. You can end up with a so-so hand or end up with a really poor hand, even if you do make decent decisions. So that just kind of goes across the board worldwide, my opinion. I just think that we really have to be mindful of that. I don't think it's something that's just innate, and it's more of a class issue than anything else. And that's really what it should be. We should be looking at, not in terms of a Bernie Sanders approach, but just in terms of, if we're going to look at humanity, let's look at it for what it is. And so carrying on here, it says that Trump said he feels no responsibility to understand anger of Black Americans, Woodward book says. And that's what I was referring to. This is actually the article that goes back to the other article. And so when he was asked here, let me see. Okay, so this is where Woodward asked him, so do you have any sense that privilege has isolated and put you in a cave to a certain extent, as it put me, and I think uh, lots of white privileged people in a cave, and that we have to work our way out of it to understand the anger and the pain, particularly Black people feel in this country? And that's where Trump asked him, you really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? Just listen to you. Wow. No, I don't feel that at all. Trump, well, Trump kind of was born in a special situation, right? I mean, his dad did well, from what I understand, in real estate, and Trump did better to a certain point, an extent. So I think in his case, he shouldn't quite say that. It just, I guess, if you don't put it in a racial way, I can see that, but at the same time, at least acknowledge that, hey, you were born in a different situation. Yes, you did work hard, but some people are born into a little more, some born into a little less, some into nothing. So I think we should look at that. That's something to consider, but not in a racial way. Um, am I saying there's no racism? Absolutely not. Of course, there are places nearby where if I go, I feel kind of awkward because I'm being looked at kind of interesting. Is it a class thing? Could be. Is it a racial thing? Could be. But again, ignorance is one thing, but I think if we look at the majority of people in general, where we live, and the places where we live, I don't think it's that pervasive. those that choose to be ignorant and continue in that, they're just going to anyway. That doesn't make a difference really. So carrying on here. So according to Biden, Biden says he vows to be totally transparent on his health if elected. Okay, what does that say? So if you elect me, then I will be honest with you. If you don't elect me, then I'm going to continue lying to you. That's how I read it, at least. So essentially, he just says, as far as his ability to function, so on and so forth, his health, that he'll be, if he is elected, like he has been in the past, he will be honest according to him, and will tell us his true state, and will share that with us. So thank you, Joe, but I wish you would do that now. That would be great. Thank you. On to the next. Okay, so not a big story, but it's a story that's out there. It's probably not covered much. I didn't see it very much. Some people are covering it on YouTube, but it says University of Michigan Dearborn holds whites only virtual cafe. Okay. How do you even respond to this? Okay. So there's a cafe at this university, and they're creating a situation where it's pretty much a whites only. The problem when you give so much credence to this whole issue that's going on right now with the racial divide and everything, you begin to have crazy things like this. And the way they explain it, it's not so much a white supremacist issue. It appears to be more of a, and let me jump right down to there where they explain this. It says the events were intended to allow students the opportunity to connect, to process current events, share their experiences, relate to race, share knowledge and resources, and brainstorm solutions. Marmelli said. The original intent was to provide students from marginalized communities a space that allowed for them to exist freely without having to normalize their lives and experiences, while also providing students that do not identify as persons of color the opportunity to deepen their understanding of race and racism without harming or relying on students of color to educate them. Okay. So we come to understanding by removing those we are trying to understand. Explain that to me again. Okay. So we feel free to say what's on our mind. We have to remove those of which we're going to talk about. I don't like gossip, but that's what it sounds like to me. But anyway, I know it's not the intention here. So why would it be a good idea? Why does it sound like a good idea to go out and do this? Why? Somebody please explain that to me. This whole situation is kind of pushing us in a opposite direction of where we want to go. It's almost like we're asking for segregation, right? So let me play a quick video for you in terms of what I'm talking about here. And so, okay, so we go back to Chaz. You guys all remember Chaz, CHOP, which it became in Seattle, where they took up 6 blocks and essentially created their own society, communist society. It's basically what it was. And they had their own police force, I guess you can call it, their own security. And I forget the guy's name right now, but they had a person in charge, and he essentially had a few people that had guns in the zone, and essentially they created a situation where they began to create segregation zones. Here we go.
How long's the blackout going for?
Till 8 p.m.
Okay, so I have to wait till 8 basically?
You're welcome to hang out in the perimeter area.
Well, the thing is, I'm half Italian, half Colombian, so do I get a pass to get in there, or?
Well, this space is right now held for just black folks.
Oh, just black, okay,
Yeah.
so full black, you're saying?
If you have black ancestry, or if you have experienced oppression because you are black, then you can enter this space.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Not much to say about these things. I get it. I see what they're trying to do. I get it. I don't mean understand it. I get what they're trying to do. And so they're trying to give black people a special place. Okay. 2 ways to look at that. One is we are giving you this space to just say, kind of like the 40 acres and a mule thing, right? We're giving you this and it's yours, and we're doing it out of respect, so on and so forth. The other way to look at it is we are segregating you guys to this space. You need to stay there. No one else can go in that direction. This is totally against what we're trying to do here. Totally against what I understand in terms of this movement. So let's just stop. This has nothing to do with it. We're not trying to further segregate. We're not trying to do that. That's not the goal here. I hope. And so don't get so lost in what you're trying to do that you go blind to the fact that you're actually contributing to the problem. This is ridiculous. So if we have a cafe that's doing this, we have Chaz or Chop that was doing this, and I know these aren't the only two instances. It's ridiculous. It gets to the point where you're blind to what you're trying to do, and that's actually biblical as well too. It says, that essentially there's a veil. You can't even see what you're doing here to sin. I mean, it's ridiculous what's happening, and you're given over to a depraved mind. This is a depraved mind here. This is ridiculous. And so, carrying on here. So since we're talking about cafes and we're talking about adults and all these things, here's something about restaurants and COVID. And so this particular article talks about, by CNN, it talks about COVID-19, that we're twice as likely, according to this study, to get COVID-19 if we go to restaurants. Now, they were saying because we tend to stay close to people a little longer, we tend to interact a little more, so on and so forth. I personally think it's also passed on by people who work there. I mean, that's just common sense. Every time you go out, of course, you're taking a chance. You're risking it if you're concerned about it. This whole article is just kind of on that. It talks about 42% of adults who tested positive. The data showed that reported having close contact with at least one person known to have COVID-19, compared with 14% of those tested negative, and most of those close contacts, 51%, were family members. The researchers also found that 71% of adults with COVID-19, 74% of those who tested negative reported always using a face covering while in public. And so this kind of gives us a rundown, but this whole thing just kind of goes over those facts as far as going to restaurants and things. So again, just something interesting out there that's happening and to take account of. And let's jump over to here. Okay, so downplaying, and this is Trump and what's been going on with him. I'm just going to play the video.
Christina Maurice, critics say the president should not have downplayed the threat right when the virus was ready to hit the U.S. hard. And today the president denied that he withheld the truth.
I didn't lie. What I said is we have to be calm. We can't be panicked.
President Trump defending his comments to journalist Bob Woodward back in February, where he made it clear he knew the serious threat of the coronavirus.
You just breathe the air. That's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus.
And it's always a serious problem. That doesn't mean I'm going to jump up and down in the air and start saying people are going to die, people are going to die. No, I'm not going to do that.
But critics say the president failed in his response to the virus.
He didn't want to cause a panic. Why? Because of the stock market? Nobody wants to cause a panic. You want to show leadership.
Mr. Trump complained that Woodward should have made his comments public sooner.
If Bob Woodward thought it was bad, then he should have immediately gone out publicly, not wait 4 months. You know, he's had that statement for 4 months, maybe 5 months. He's had it for a long time.
The president gave Woodward 18 interviews between December and July for his new book.
Okay, so Bob Woodward, I think that's a good point. If this was done back in, would you say March or so, several months ago, and it's obvious that people have been dying. We're at 190, probably going on 200 pretty soon. And you just kind of hold on to this information. You don't share with anybody. You don't say, hey, Mr. President, by the way, I think you're wrong, what you're saying. Hold this information until September, almost election time. I think that's wrong too. Could Trump have done better? I think Trump should be wiser as far as what he's saying. Yes, I mean, the FBI, the CIA, the president, they all have things that they don't tell us. This is one of them, obviously. He didn't want to make people panic. I get that. That's his job. His job is to secure our environment, our state, our country. And in doing so, it's to not cause panic. I mean, yeah, if he came out and said, hey, everybody's going to die, people are going to freak out. I think the smart thing would have been just to be straight up and say, this is a serious thing. We've been monitoring this in China. We were all watching videos before it even happened. I mean, I remember watching several videos where people were just passing out in the street. It was a serious thing. And so to just come out and say, hey, this is serious. We're taking it serious. We know that it affects this population. This population, try to be careful. We're going to continue to monitor. Nothing to panic about because we are on top of it, but just be aware. I think that would make me feel comfortable. I mean, at the same time, yes, I was watching Wuhan, watching what was happening out there. And so again, I think honesty and transparency is good, but I understand too that they can't tell us everything. At the same time, if it is something that's serious, they have to kind of counterbalance that. And that's just in general. There's always situations where they're not going to tell us exactly what's happening because people will freak out. They will. We've seen it. We're seeing it right now. And so again, probably a better approach. And Trump, do your homework. This guy has been working for a while. He did do this with Nixon, and it was a good thing. He did it with you, and I guess it's a good thing too to bring it out. But at the same time, don't make it just political, Mr. Woodward. Just actually, if you're concerned about the population, share that information. That would have been nice to know too. People, we're being lied to from all directions. Focus, pay attention. All right, and so I wanted to leave you guys with this video. It's a video with Trump and Joe Biden, and just a little fun something at the end. So always remember, if you like this video, if you like what I'm doing, just hit the like button, comment down below, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. If you have anything to say, just say it. You can always send an email, contact us, click on there, follow us soon, okay? Good to see you guys, and here you go. Just enjoy and have a good time.
But Biden and his son are stone cold crooked, and you know it.
This is the guy that's unhinged. He is unhinged. I worry about what he's going to do, not about me or my family. I worried about what he'll do in the next year in the presidency.
We call him 1% Biden. Until Obama took him off the trash heap, he couldn't do anything. Now he's talking about Russia. Tough guy. He's a tough guy.
It's either he is so stupid that he doesn't understand. No, it's possible. It's possible he doesn't understand the damage he's doing.
Well, I heard Biden, who's a loser. I mean, look, Joe never got more than 1%, except Obama took him off the trash heap, and now it looks like he's failing.
He's like a child who can't believe this has happened to him. All his whining and self-pity.
Oh, Sleepy Joe. Well, he's running tomorrow. No, but could you imagine if I said just a small fraction of the mistakes he makes, which are unbelievable, every speech?
So, again, subscribe, like, come back, and then we'll have more stories for you. Goodbye.
An absolute fool.